So hello everyone and welcome to the Analytics and Instrumentation Sync on the 23rd of May 2023. I added a bunch of FYIs to the agenda. I wanted to just quickly go through to make sure that everyone heard about those. So the first one is in the current metric definitions, we still have a name field. And I think there's even a bug open with the name generator. And this name field creates a lot of confusion. In my understanding, it was intended to be used for some purposes in the past, but ended up not being really used. So the current, like the old documentation was also a bit outdated or not really straightforward in the sense of it didn't tell users why, whether this name actually changes anything or not. I had a bunch of reviews where this came up and people weren't sure like how to call the name or how to actually use it. And so we decided to remove the name field going forward. So that's probably going to happen in the next milestone, the actual removal, or whenever we have time. For now, I'm just going to I have an MR in progress to update the docs to tell everyone that it's kind of deprecated and they don't need to use it. But yeah, as soon as we can, we should get to actually removing it. I just want to make everyone aware because this might also come up in your reviews. So if you see anyone creating a new metric and adding a name to it, you can just tell them that they don't need to do that, and yeah, and just get rid of the name. It doesn't actually do anything anyway. So it's for right now, it would only be for documentation purposes, but since we also have the key path in the metric definition, it's more confusing anyways. Are there any questions towards that? Okay, then the other bigger thing I just want to mention today is I finally got to rename our group in GitLab, and the one project that we had outside of the group, which also had our old name on it, the product intelligence name. So this was the group inside of the analytics section, which is now called analytics instrumentation. And then we had this one project that was on the base level of the GitLab organization, so GitLab org/product intelligence. And we also I also moved that one inside of our group to make it clear that this belongs to us. We call it internal since this, for example, has the templates for onboarding issues and also holds kind of some of the internal issues. So things like, for example, with this renaming or things like a team event, those kinds of issues we normally put into this project. And so that's why we decided to call it internal for now. I think the important thing here is that in theory, I think right now there's redirects still working. I don't know if they are going to go away at some point, but in the future, we need to make sure that all the URLs are kind of pointing towards that. And also if anything, starts behaving strangely from the projects that are within the group, for example. So for example, the metric dictionaries within the group and a bunch more projects, the Snowplow pseudonomizer. So I tried to change all the URLs in the handbook already. There's an MR ongoing to change links in the docs. But yeah, if we can come up with any other places, or if you encounter anything strange, then let me know. And also if anyone within Slack, for example, still uses an old link to link to an issue or something, you can also be friendly and tell them that we now are renamed or have also officially renamed these projects to make sure that those links kind of work in the long term and that there's no confusion. And the last part here is when like going through the docs and kind of through the main code base and trying like looking for product intelligence mentions, it's fortunately or not, not only mentioned inside of documentation, but there's actual code that refers to product intelligence. I think the two things that I can remember from the top of my head is some like is product intelligence enabled kind of functionality, and for example, specific tests are in a product intelligence folder. Yeah, and so that's an open discussion from my point of view, whether that's worth also tackling, because that's definitely not as easy as just kind of going through documentation and kind of quickly bulk renaming things.
We also have danger bot rules in a product intelligence folder, I think.
Yeah, I have to check again in the good point in the danger bot gem, but I think I thought I checked there already.
Yeah, also probably feature flags. And I remember I had to rename a sidekick job that's ran the service ping. And this one's a little bit tricky to do, but it's doable.
Yeah, for the feature flags, I think anything that any ones that are ongoing, actually, I think there's when looking at this, I feel like there's a bunch of really old feature flags still in the code, so that might be a general thing to clean up.
Yeah, rather than renaming feature flags, we might look at actually removing them. That makes sense.
I would also leave the sidekick worker as it is, because it's a struggle to migrate it to the new name. It's doable, but it's more effort, I would say. It brings the value.
Yeah, because you have to create a new worker with a new name, then let the old workers stop finish all the jobs, and then migrate to the new worker. It's kind of a pain, and I don't think it's worth it personally.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't like in those cases. I mean, it's probably not the best to keep it the way it is, but I agree. And if it's like a more arduous process to do a migration, then let's just leave it as is.
What we can do, probably, we may, as collectively as a group, think about the name convention, like for the namespaces that we want to use for the features we develop, and use them consistently going onwards, and accept that we're gonna have some legacy, as we have still usage.data.rb file, and we probably gonna remove it at some point and treat all of this legacy as probably over time, as the code evolves, there would be opportunities to move this code base more organically from legacy code depth names and locations to the new one that we're gonna standardize. But probably it would be nice to have more like collective discussion, like how we want to name it, how we want to structure. So there's no like free fire for different folders depending on the developer starting the work given area, because naming things is hard in general. It's everyone has a little bit different approach.
Does that tie in also? I'm just wondering now, kind of, do your thoughts there also tie in with kind of the current effort in what Jonas is doing with the new unified or the event tracking? Because I mean, there, like, I think as it stands right now, the MR would create a new namespace. So maybe even if that still takes a bit of time, it would be worth it to kind of signal boost that one as well, so that because in the end, I think a lot of things should go under that namespace, or we would need to think about if there's like something that doesn't fit in there, or I don't know.
Yes, I think that we should have some sort of convention, maybe even this internal event tracking should be under some overarching namespace, like, I don't know, internal business, it's analytics or whatever. Like I don't have a good name at hand, but maybe it shouldn't be a top level namespace. But I would probably not block the current effort just for us to unblock the next iteration, but rather have this discussion. And it would be like 3 files to rename in not that many spaces already. So I would continue with the iteration 0 as it is, and open the conversation for whole group, like how we want to, what the top level namespaces we want to use, because it's a GitLab, at least on the backend side, there's a convention that requires every feature code to be under some defined namespace. So we cannot place things directly under GitLab namespace, but we have to have our separate domain, separate namespace under GitLab. So like GitLab Analytics, and then whatever feature we develop. But it would be probably nice to have like more thought through conversion that probably not ties us back to any group or stage names. To answer one of the Ankit question below, there is this growth product intelligence, because at some point in time, product intelligence was part of the growth stage. So it's not only the group names that change, stages also change from time to time. So using any of those may be not the most maintainable thing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that part. Just for reference, Ankit, so that you know, we actually have to keep this old folder. Like normally, I think we would rename or delete the old group name. The only reason that this one is kept is because originally the metric dictionary wasn't at metrics.gitlab.com, but rather at the default URL for a GitLab page, which is kind of something like gitlab.io and then kind of the group name and so on. And so it was something like gitlab.io/growth/product intelligence/metrics dictionary. And that URL is actually used in old legal documents. And because it's used in legal documents, it needs to still work. And so we need to keep this project around. It's just there as a redirect to the actual. So because now it just redirects to metrics.gitlab.com, but we cannot really get rid of it, because otherwise those old links wouldn't work anymore. And I don't think there's any kind of easy workaround to like squat on a specific GitLab pages URL otherwise. But it's one more showcase, I think, that basing anything on a group or stage name within the code just probably isn't a good long-term investment. I think that the idea around the discussion is good. So what I can do is as part of this epic, or maybe separately open up a discussion where we can also maybe collect which namespaces we currently occupy, where like all the disparate things are in there, so that we also get a better understanding of, okay, what is all the functionality that ideally maybe would be used under one namespace, so we can think more holistically about, is there one name? Does it even make sense to have one name? Because it might also be okay to have like multiple separate things if they are actually separate.
We can also collect all these top level namespaces linked in our handbook page, so it is more transparent, like what we really own in the future. I also wanted to ask one follow-up question. Is there any written information in this legacy project that redirects to the metric dictionary, why it's there? It might be nice to have like some note. It's necessary for the redirects for the legal document reasons, because I could see that at some point in the future, somebody's like, hey, this project is so stale, no one probably ever need it, and they're gonna remove it and it's gonna create a havoc. So
it is there.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It says it's there to redirect, and it also has a link to a related issue that I would assume holds more. Like, I haven't read into it, but my assumption right now would be that this holds a bit more information about like why exactly.
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
And one more, I think, because before we kind of jumped over that, because Mikola, you also added the question around the product group attribute and metric definitions. There's a separate issue for that. I can look it up quickly. I just wanted to keep the different issues around renaming things somewhat handleable, so that it's not one person that needs to go through thousands of, or maybe not thousands, but hundreds of different things. And so that would be one of the next things I would tackle as soon as the other stuff is merged in. Okay, do we have any more questions or discussion points around the renaming? Right, then thanks a lot. There's 2 more read-only items, but I especially can just mention the first one. Don't forget about the team event tomorrow. I expect everyone there. And you can still mention any games. I think right now I will mostly prepare for GeoGuessr and Drosaurus. And then we can also vote tomorrow what we actually want to play. And that being said, if there's nothing else, then see you at the latest tomorrow at the event, and have a nice rest of the day.